Glad that you could be with us, and very excited today to be able to go through what will be steps 2 and then steps 3 of the AI Ready co-branded training. By way of a quick reminder, I'm Stuart Lacey, Chief Growth Officer at OpenEXO, and I have with me the one and the only Kevin Allen, Chief Community Officer at OpenEXO, and the guy that's rubbing his hair and going, yeah, you got the boss on it. I know. And then we have an incredible group of attendees today, and these attendees have already completed the requirements under Section 1, which being the AI primer. And this group as well has kindly been very involved in the process of the design of the entire product and the agreements which bind it. By way of preparation, this group has received not just the knowledge that came through to this date, but also the updated latest version of the agreement, which covers a whole bunch of appendices, and all of you remember those included roles and responsibilities and all those kinds of things, and the pricing that's been established, and as well as a copy of the overview material, which I'm going to be going through in specifics on the sales side. Is kind of how we explain it out. So for the first part of today's training, we're going to be going through the AI Ready walkthrough. And what that walkthrough is a very thoughtful way and stage-based process built in an Excel spreadsheet that we're going to share in a minute on the screen. And Kevin's going to lead you through that. And the reason we want Kevin to lead that is in the AI Ready program that we're going to be running, and what we're training for today is the co-branded version of AI Ready. And the co-branded version is designed such that a member of our community in good standing that meets the requirements as stated in that agreement I referred, actually wants to offer AI Ready as part of one of their offerings as well, in partnership with OpenEXO. And so there are role definitions in there, and one of them is the OM, the Operations Manager. And in all cases, the OM is going to be Kevin Allen, unless we at some point in the future hire additional OMs. It's going to be, for now, Kevin. And as the Operations Manager, the way we think of that is kind of the man or the woman behind the green curtain pulling the levers, right? All the technical things happening that kind of are invisible, and that everyone else gets a Wizard of Oz kind of experience. Okay. There are 2 other key roles in the co-branded delivery: the Relationship Manager, the RM, and then the Consultant. I just want to briefly touch on those, just so we're all on the same page before we go into launch with Kevin. The RM effectively is acting as the key relationship manager, and for the purposes of this training is also what we're going to call the introducer or the sales-based person on your team. Okay. Now, if you were to divide that up, you would need to make sure that anyone doing selling was actually doing the sales training separately. Does that make sense? Or if you only wanted to be doing sales, you would really focus on the sales-based training as an introducer if you weren't really wanting to do the consultant role or the RM role as it stands for actually managing the platform. But our understanding of this group is that you're doing the RM role. And the RM role works closely with the OM as key relationship manager, which is in every meeting and every part of the process from beginning to successful completion and high five. Okay. The consultant is the person that shows up in some, but not all of the meetings, and it'll be clearly defined in what we go through today, when and where they show up, and what the roles are. And there's a reason, if you all recall, we called it consultant, is because it's not a coach, because we want to reserve the term coach for all the work and value that can occur after an AI Ready is done, where they might engage with coaches and coaching and all other kinds of aspects of the OpenEXO platform. Okay. The consultant's role is to kind of be a little bit more of the guru, a little bit more the sage, and someone that is there to be present in the meetings when we're reviewing key outputs of diagnostics and assessments or the outcomes report. Okay. So it is possible that you might, as a co-brander, have one person as an RM and another person as a consultant. Okay. In that instance, and just use an example, if Captain Smith was the relationship manager, he'd secured a client. He was going to kind of hold hands the whole way through, work closely with Kevin as the OM behind the curtain. But Captain, for whatever reason, I didn't feel qualified, or thought in his model of his business, he preferred to have a consultant. Then that consultant might be, for example, Maria, hypothetically, and Maria would make sure she was doing the consultant hat, and Captain Smith would be doing the RM hat, and they could do that together. The reason that was designed is, you might recall, we have some members that are very excited, but don't feel qualified to be the consultant. So we wanted them to be able to still generate the lead, be the RM, and maybe bring in one of you all that want to do the consultant work, and then they could rev share the revenue associated with those roles. Okay. I see a lot of nodding. It's a complete restatement of what we knew. It's exactly what's in the agreements. But I say that just by way of staging that for today's call, we're going to treat each of you as both RM and consultant. We're not kind of going to break apart those roles. It's going to be kind of clear the expectation you're delivering both. Okay. If down the road we get people that want to try and figure out their individual roles, they should be able to pull it out of the training to understand the individual roles. But in order to be either RM or consultant, you do need to have completed the training. Make sense? Any questions before we start?
Nope.
Excellent. I'm going to pass it over to you, Kevin, and I believe you'll probably do some sharing. I will be here the whole way through, and if I jump in or support or grab me as needed, I'm here to help.
Perfect. Thanks. Thanks so much, Stuart. Great to be here with everyone. And there are so many Kevin Allens in the world. Such a common name. So can't be the one and only. Anyway, let's jump straight into it. What you are currently seeing on the screen, I know it's a lot of information, and what we're going to do is we're going to walk through this screen column by column and row by row. So before we jump into the actual meat of it, what you will see, just if we look at the way it is outlined, is in the rows running down, you will see we have the number of days. We then have a phase. This is what we are calling that day, that section. You'll then see we have client lead, client teammates, and client as group. So this is really to understand who from the client side we would expect to be on the call. We then go into the roles, which we've been speaking about, which is we have the OM, the RM, and the consultant role. And we then have the duration that we expect that particular phase will actually take. We then have the what, so what we expect to happen during that phase, the outcome of that phase, and then we have the needs, any training. We have our HubSpot trigger, so that's really more for me, but just so you do know. And then we have had a space for where there's any notes that we might want to add. So if we jump straight in, you'll see then on the columns we have this divided out into essentially 3 weeks, and so you will see that we start with obviously launching hopefully on a Monday. Now, of course, these steps don't necessarily have to take place identically to this. For example, if we look at 2, 3, 4, and 5, for example, those we are set out across the week, but ultimately could happen on 1 or 2 days. So this then allows for some flexibility. But as we get into things, you'll see why we built it in this certain way. So I'm going to just start in column B there, looking at the first day, and ultimately, of course, we're now talking about the actual process of AI Ready. So sale would have happened. We're going to speak about sales after this, but in this case, the sale has happened. It's closed. Money has been paid. The team is ready to go. And so the first step is the onboarding.
Sorry,
yes,
Kevin, I'm just going to quickly interrupt. Sorry, just to help establish. If you could just zoom out one step further so we could see all 3 weeks, just drop the zoom maybe to like 90 or 75. Thank you. There we go. Perfect. If you can see, the other thing I just wanted to mention, if the column is in green, it is a meeting column, meaning there's a meeting of some kind occurring. That's a gathering of one or more of all the people. If the column is in blue, it would typically mean that it is a time when the client is doing work and providing surveys, feedbacks, information. That's kind of client work days where they're working. If it is in yellow, that is where we need a window as OpenEXO to do some magic on the submissions we've received before we can move to the next section. And the only column in red at the end is our debrief. That's kind of out of scope, and it's after the end of the 15 days, and that is where we kind of meet as a separate group and debrief how to go, what did we learn, what are the next steps. Okay, so this is just a color coding that we currently have. And so you can see, for example, at a glance, there are 4 green columns, meaning there are 4 meetings, right? And you can see that we have interspersed yellow time where needed to ensure that Kevin and our team has sufficient hours that after certain work done by them is submitted, that we can turn it, generate the reports, and get ready for the meeting before the meeting occurs. And that includes enough time to prep with you, for example, if Kevin's done some work, so that you can review the things prior to the meeting, so you're also informed. And I just wanted to share there's been a thoughtfulness, and that's what the colors mean on the schedule. Back to you, Ken.
Perfect. So great. So if we jump into the column B, which is essentially the onboarding call, and I'm gonna, I guess, is this Zoom a little bit out now? So is 100%
I'll go to 125.
okay?
Go to try 125. Yeah, let's do that, and you can scroll. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. So what you will see is that on the onboarding call, we would expect at least the client lead. The client lead may want to be bringing the team members that join with on the AI Ready, and so we have left that as a question mark. One thing that we are fairly concerned about is if they are potentially too many voices, that you could end up with the call taking way longer and potentially having the sort of scope creep happening. And so we do want to make sure that we are as efficient as possible on these calls. What you will see
as a reminder, Kevin, sorry, it is designed for 5 people to go through. The client lead is 1, so the rest of the team would usually be 4 additional people. Now, if you encounter any time that people want more than 5, make sure you have a chat with us. We are of the opinion right now that a couple extra people is not the end of the world. It doesn't really cost too much more to do it, but there should be a hard cap on 10, in our opinion. We should not dilute the party any more than 10. But Kevin's concern is a good one, that if you go to 6, 7, 8, 9, remember now that these meetings will tend to take longer because everyone's going to have a voice and everyone's going to have an objection or a thought. So the target number remains to be 5, 1 lead, and 4 contributors. Sorry, Kevin, to you.
No, perfect. Thanks, Stuart, for that. And so what you will see is for the OM, so in this case, in the early days, this will be me. We have here WDT, and what that is standing for is ultimately the OM will attend the onboarding call for a specific co-branded partner on 3 occasions. And then once, and the first time, the OM will run the onboarding call, in order to ensure that run it with the RM. On the second try, second time, the RM will run it with the OM being there, and ultimately, with the OM potentially stepping in where needed, and on the third try, absolutely none there. This essentially is, watch do teach, is WDT, and so that way, ultimately, this ensures that the call goes off well, and that we're making sure that the level is where it needs to be. But then ultimately, moving from there, it would just be the RM that would need to be on the onboarding call. That call, as you can see, will be 30 minutes, and ultimately it is a time to set expectations and to identify the team that is going to be part of the program. Now, if you will see that all the calls actually are links. and these link through to additional documents. And so if I click on the onboarding call document, what you will see here is, and this is a 30-minute call, sorry, that it'll give a brief a brief outline of the call. So ultimately, the aim of this call is to welcome them to the program and to share what the next steps are going to be. As Stuart did say, the team consists of the lead and 4 other members. Optimal is really what we want. And during the call, the RM and the team lead will decide on the team, and this will all then be added into the intake form. So on the call, the intake form link will be shared. We will briefly take the team lead through the EXQ survey to show the EXQ survey, as well as the AI Ready quiz. These are 3 things that within the week following the onboarding call that need to be done by the team. And so on this call, we will walk through those, show those through to the team, and then also show the how the team will sign up to the OpenExO platform. So the team lead will use the top code, which ultimately gives them access to a pro account, and the team members will get access to a premium account. And so these links will work for that. And we'll also show the AI team platform, which is this platform. I don't know why that happened.
They've all seen it, so you can skip that, Kevin. They team account.
Everyone has seen this, right? Yeah. So ultimately, it's really getting everything ready, showing everyone the links, showing them what they need to do, making sure that they are really comfortable with everything, and ultimately, finding the time for all the upcoming calls. Now, this might not be able to happen on the actual call, but you want this to happen as soon as possible. So if it's not going to happen on the actual call, it needs to happen pretty soon after that. Ideal if it does happen on the call. This way, you can set out the next 2 weeks. You know what's happening. Everything's ready to go. So that's essentially what this first call is. On every call, we also have a form, a survey. It's very quick, literally, 30 seconds. And what we recommend is that within that, right at the end of the call, but still on the call, we actually share that survey so that it actually gets done. And this is in order for us to, of course, always be improving, but also so that we can make sure that we learn and we listen to the clients, and in this way we're all learning from one another. So that is the first call.
Kevin, do you mind if I just add a couple things before we move on, if you're ready?
Yeah.
Thank you. So just a reminder that during that initial onboarding call, I do see a question chat about it being an hour long. We don't want these to turn into consultative deep dive calls. It is just onboarding. Originally, we thought we could do it in 15. So I think we've done 1 or 2 of these in 15 without an issue. So don't try and make it a big, long call. It is really to set them up for success. Here's what happens, what order. So if you could stop sharing 1 sec, Kevin. What you might want to do, and you'd be welcome to do at this point, is actually to share this diagram out of the sales onboarding materials, which you will have and we'll review in the next part, which is basically, this is what we're going to go through, right? You've got this diagram, right? Here are the 6 steps, right? And you're basically making sure they understand they're going to start with the EXO survey quotient. They're going to submit it. They're going to do the AI Ready team quiz, and they're going to submit that. And so if you map that against what Kevin showed you in the diagram, the only other thing that's on there is the intake form. We don't put that on here, but that's the very first step, is basically LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff, right? So you're gathering your launch information. You're then going to explain, in week 2, we go to diagnostic and ordering tools. And then in week 3, we go to use case ranking and outcomes reports. So you're setting them up for success, right? It's kind of what I think is important at this stage. The other thing I would mention that I like that idea is, I've used this before, is if you didn't do it in sales close and winning the client, it needs to be done here. And that is to recommend to them, if they only come as one person for onboarding, how they design their team to go through it. So this will be covered in sales as well, but I call it the 5-layer cake. Ideally, they have a C-suite representative, leadership. They have someone from, and maybe Kevin, you could drop this into that shared onboarding call. Just make sure they've got 5 seats identified. Ideally, it's a C-suite person, and who's the name of that person, like name, rank, and serial number. Right? Who is someone from marketing? Who is someone from sales? Who is someone from finance or risk? And who is someone from operations? Looking at those 5, you've got a pretty good 5-layer cake of the company. Okay, so rather than get, now if they want to put all marketing people, and remember, when you get to use cases, it could be all these use cases that are finance, operationally involved, they might not really be thinking about. So I like the idea of the 5-layer cake as the example. And you do need, so if they don't bring those people to this call, or if they bring people and they're not ideal, you need to kind of guide them a little bit. This is what an ideal stack would look like. Okay, that's who we need to be able to have identified, so that as they go forward in the next set of surveys, we know who's taken them, right? We know their role, their title, their name, their email. So it's very important we establish that. And that's part of the intake. And that should be done in the onboarding call to make sure you've kind of taken the right slice of that company. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Back to you, Kev.
Perfect. Let me. So if we then jump through, what you will see is 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all work for the actual client. So here we've got completing the intake form. If I just quickly jump here over to this folder, which we will give you access to. You will see here in the assets folder, I have all the screenshots of the intake form, so that you can actually see everything that is in the intake form. So as Stuart shared there, it's really just getting a really good understanding of the client, and then ultimately, what tools they're currently using, etc. I know I'm rushing through this here, and then also which, who are the team members, so that we ultimately have those people's details. We can then make sure we are sending them all the links, for example, to sign up to the platform, etc., as additional to what is shared on the call. So that is the intake form. I think everyone here on the call has seen the exponential quotient survey and the AI quiz. So those are will happen, and what you will see here is that for the exponential quotient survey, we do ask that they just complete one assessment for the entire organization. Given that we are focusing on AI, this is an AI ready. We do only ask for the one EXQ survey, just to get a baseline from an EXO point of view. But the AI quiz, you'll see that 5 AI quiz assessments are complete. And then the team will also be able to access the EXO team and the EXO pass in order to access the AI learning on the exponential technologies course. And so so that's essentially what we see here in week 1. What will happen is then you'll see that we go into a yellow stage, which is a back-end stage. What will happen is...
Kevin,
yep.
Sorry, again, if we just could pause at the end of each one, I'll just add if there's any areas I just want to kind of add into. So if you just scroll back up a little bit, so on days 2 through 5, which is the prep, and then we activate them kind of phase. One of the things that's important is, remember, once they're free to go, they could do all those in a day, 2 days, but we give them kind of a sequential. But what's important is when you look at the EXQ survey, it's totally fine if they collaborate and work together to answer it, but it's only one. But for the other ones where we say 5, it's important they don't collaborate. I want to explain the rationale why. We actually don't want them to talk to each other and crowdsource their overall thinking, their group think. We want the individual's assessment from each of their role positioning. That way, when we are actually done with it, Ken will give you an idea of what the output looks like. But the important thing is we can then lay the radar maps over each other, and they can actually see their differentiation of viewpoint on how ready they might be based on the assessment, based on their role definition. By the way, I have made a note just quickly, Kevin, in the FAQs, we need to add on that input, the intake form, their role in the company, like finance, marketing. I don't know if I saw it. We just need to make sure it's in there, okay? So we want to make sure that they don't group speak the 5 assessments. They're done individually, but they can obviously collaborate on the EXQ survey, okay?
Yeah.
That was it. Sorry, back to you, Kevin.
No, perfect. So ultimately, what we will then do is take the information from the EXQ survey, from the AI quiz, and ultimately collate that, put that together in the Google Drive. And so if I just quickly jump back over here, what we will see here is there will be a folder for each of the clients, which the co-brand partner will have access to. And that way, all of the information, etc., will be placed into that folder, ready for the actual call. And so what you will see here is that here we do ask for a 1-day delay here, and ultimately this will then be put together, shared with the relationship manager, the RM, to then run the accelerate call, which will then be happening on that Monday. And there will ultimately, especially for the first few, we do expect some back and forth with the RM, so that everything is looking great. And as we run more and more of these, the aim is to, in fact, automate this step. Right now, it is going to be a semi-automated, semi-manual process. Stuart, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
Yeah, so I'll add to that. 2 quick things. One, there's a question in here, which is, will they get notified when things are submitted in the folder? And yes, Google allows you to put notification flags when things are added to a folder. And obviously, you're going to be watching that folder frequently. So that will be kind of where stuff is dumped. And again, the reason we have the yellow columns are to give enough time for us and you to be able to see what's going through and be aware of it before the next meeting. But it's up to you. It's up to us to make sure it goes in, but it's up to you to also make sure that you go into that folder and don't show up to the meeting unprepared, right? Because you're taking on one of our roles, okay? The other thing that I made a note on is we are working on trying to build some agent flows that will help with this, as he mentioned. And you're going to hear next week's Monday meeting. I won't be able to make it, but I've spoken to Ben, but we're going to launch a little competition actually within the AI working group to see if anyone can build a co-branded AI agent that actually ingests this and provides a really good continuous output as a competition with a prize. So we're looking to try and find the best way to do that, because we've actually, as of yet, found the ideal one. And so we're actually going to ask our community to help as well. But prior to that agent being up, we're going to do it the way we've always done it with our prior clients, which is we run those sequences and Kevin will be responsible for that. So he'll be his own AI agent using the tools, but not automated. We will be looking to add that as soon as we can. Okay.
Yeah. Perfect. And so, yeah, so once, so what will happen is the RM will receive everything in the folder, and yeah, so it'll be all the raw data as well as collated data and info, so that you can then run the Accelerate call. The aim of the Accelerate call is to give a short review of the exponential quotient and the AI quiz, to ultimately give the clients a brief idea of exactly where they are and get them ready to complete the diagnostic survey. And so within this call, you will present what is shared here in column G, and then you will share with the clients about the diagnostic survey. What you will see here is, again, this is the relationship manager is here. Again, the OM will facilitate those first few, and this will be a 30-minute call. You will see that for the clients, we expect the entire team to be there, so all 5 people. This is why the client time you can see is that 150 minutes, so 30 minutes for the 5 people, and so yeah, so you will. I'm just going to jump here over back to these assets. So you will not share the entire diagnostic survey. That would take too long, but ultimately share the outline of what they are to expect. You will see, if we jump over here to the blue columns of starting and completing the diagnostic survey, that we recommend setting aside 90 minutes to do this, and that the entire team participates in this. What we have seen from previous iterations of this is, and this is why we also have the questions in a PDF like this, is that we have had organizations share these out with the specific members of the team, because what you will see is there are different sections of the diagnostic. The first looking at context and motivation. The second, and I am just going to rush through these. The second is looking at data and technology. So some people might want to ask, certain people on the team for that. The third is looking at people and culture. So perhaps they want to specifically speak to certain people on the team around that. Then we are looking at strategy in relation to AI, and that then it essentially moves more into a section around investment into AI, and then the last thing is looking at compliance and ethics within AI. And once that is done, then there's just one last question saying, if there's anything else you want to share, you can share. And so essentially on the call here, you're not going through the diagnostic that would take too long, but giving a high level of what the diagnostic is going to be, what it's going to entail. why it's important to, to come together as a team to give, as thorough as possible information so that we can then, really give a great outcome from that. Stuart, anything to add?
Yeah, I would just add, I love it. It's perfect. What I would say is that if I were to design that call, I would probably spend the first few minutes obviously reminding them about how we got to where we are. EXO survey, AI quiz, we kind of looked at that. You will have the radar plot, obviously, of how they all looked at it differently. So it might be an opportunity to spend a minute or two and go, look, you have very different views on strategy, very similar view on ethics. So it gives you an idea to kind of just like level them a little bit. Maybe you can look at the EXO survey for 5 or 10 minutes, 5 minutes probably better, and just say, here's something that jumped out in the EXO survey, right? Because you guys know how to do that, you've got that. And if you remember, they're beautiful outputs. And so if you stop sharing for a second, and I just go back and share, if I just go back and share this, you will remember that in the EXO quotient, you've got a lot that you can share, right? You have this entire output, and it's framed into a lot of information. So there's always an opportunity for you to do a little bit of like, hey, here's what we learned, here's what we saw. And remember, in the quiz, you also get a beautiful output and you get the ability to see this. And the only difference is you'll have a radar plot with 5 of them plotted on top, which gives you discussion points, right? So I think that's a really great way for you to kind of frame the first half of that 30 minutes together. And the second half of those minutes, and you can share your screen again, Kevin, if you want to bring it back up. The second half of it is really get ready for the week ahead. Okay. So what are you going to now be doing now that we're building on what we've just done? Okay. So without leading the witness, but them having a little bit of an insight into actually where they are at this point, is now we're going to do and I always refer to the long text document. This isn't a radio button kind of thing, and help me, help you. The more information you write, the better job we can understand. So not to rush it. You actually have 2.5 days to try and get through it, but we do want them to submit it before the end of day Wednesday to give us a full day Thursday to review it before the Friday call. So whatever number of days, if it's not Monday to Friday, if you do that call, the Accelerate call, midday, they have kind of 2.5 days to really thoughtfully complete the diagnostic. That's their job, okay? You can frame it if you want, but they're very good at going through it. And so don't get stuck in trying to go through page by page. It's not going to help you and it might lead the witness. It'll actually undermine the process. So really, really thoughtful is maybe 5 minutes on the EXO survey, the learnings, the applications, because remember, part of what we're doing is get them excited about the framework for implementation. Part of what you're doing is helping them really understand EXO. 5 minutes then maybe on the AI quiz, and especially what it meant as a team, overlapping and opportunities for communication or sharing. And if there's any consulting insights, there are insights off of there's some opportunity here for better communication, or you guys have a very wide view on strategy. Maybe that means that one part of the company thinks different from the other, or you're very tightly coupled here, which is great. It puts you in a solid position to know. Now, remember, if they gave you 5 marketing people, it's going to be biased to marketing. So remember, this is why it's so important early on to get a 5-layer cake, because you get a really good view of the company. Okay. Yeah. When we do that meeting, you want to try and keep that to 30. There's not a consultancy part to that. It is really the RM who's EXO qualified that's just looking at these outputs and just sharing some insights. We don't want this to get to a slippery slope of turning that into an hour or 2 hours where you get a consultative coaching hat on. Again, that'll undermine the process because we will drive an outcome that we aren't ready yet because they haven't done the diagnosis. Okay. Yeah. So the goal is to get them through the diagnosis, prep them to spend the time on it as a team. It's 1 diagnosis, not 5, 1 diagnostic, and they have a hard deadline because if they submit it late, the whole thing will go back. We need another day, 24 hours after submission, and then the assessment call. That's why you have to kind of watch your calendar closely as an RM. Make sure that you're managing, because if you set up early the calendar on the onboarding call, Kevin's going to be blocking time out of his calendar to have time to do the yellow columns, right? He's got work to do, and he's going to be booking the meeting for the assessment. And so if they haven't done it on Tuesday, you might want to ping them and go, guys, just making sure you're submitting by the end of tomorrow, because otherwise this cascades back everything. So you need to be the cat herder. That's your job, not Kevin's. Okay. Any questions on that? Great. Over to you, Kev.
Perfect. So then on the Friday, day 10, we ultimately have the assessment call. This will be the first call that the consultant attends. And ultimately, this call is in order to run through the outcome of the diagnostic, and to ultimately get the client ready for the next work that they need to do, which is use case prioritization. And so what you will receive...
If you could let me share screen, sorry, Kev. Let me
Yeah,
just share screen
sure.
1 second, just to root people in what they're going to be doing, is we currently output that into Gamma. And if you all can reference again the document that was shared, the AI readiness and audit should produce an output that in the past looked like this. We're hoping that as we automate the agent, it gets more and more, unified. But this will be the kind of stuff that'll be in there. Okay. And so when Kevin says the first time the consultant shows up, remember what we mean that is if you're both RM and consultant, it's the first time you're also putting the consultant hat on. Okay. Make sense?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And if next year a consultant, you've done a deal with another consultant, that's the first time they would come on the call. Okay. And remember, if you're bringing in someone else, you have to manage to ensure they have done the prep in advance, because what we've decided to do, and this will be the plan unless we change it based on the learnings, but what we've decided to do is not to send the output reports to the client prior to the meeting. We reveal in meeting. Okay. The concern about sending it prior is they're going to do all the work you would have wanted to do in meeting prior, and they're going to come armed with a battery of questions, and it's going to go into coaching mode in the meeting, which is not what we want. What we want to do is actually go through in the meeting. You can go through a high level and they then go reflect on it. Okay. If we try and do it the other way around, we're going to end up with this issue of they're all going to want to do more, and we're going to be in scope creep, and you don't want that. We don't want that, right? It turns into a massive consultancy quagmire if we're not careful. Okay. Yeah. So you have to have read it and be completely prepped. So it's not the first time you're seeing it. Obviously, if you look at the document and you're like, wow, there's something missing, as you as a consultant, you would add that. If there's something that seems like a glaring challenge, you might want to hit Kevin and go, hey, I don't understand this part. That is your opportunity, because that's your job, to be ready for that meeting. Okay. And then in the meeting, you're reviewing kind of the outputs, you're sharing it for the first time, and they get a copy of it to reflect on. And that's what that meeting is for. Sorry, Kev, you can share the screen again. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Yeah, perfect. So ultimately, that's what we will have here in the assessment call, and you will end that call off sharing the use case prioritization, which is the next step in the process. A reminder that every call, of course, ends with the quick 2-minute survey. So we will have that in every call, and you will see these are shared within the document that is attached, so that all of the information is available to you. We then will jump into the use case prioritization. What you will see is that this is for the team. We set aside 120 minutes, so 2 hours for the entire team to prioritize. You will see that we using a platform called Paperform here, which will give the use case. It will allow the team to decide whether this is a top use case, whether they want to set it to the back burner, or if they are not interested at all. If they see it as a top use case, they then need to rate it according to the investment need, whether it's very low up to very high, the overall business impact, their internal readiness, and its external urgency. And so there
could I just quickly add? Sorry, if I could
Yes.
quickly add. I do love what you've just done, and I would recommend that the RM consultant models exactly this. you need to open up a score app, go to one use case, show them the difference between not interested, back burner, and top. Show them that if it's not interested, it captures it as not interested, but it does not rate it. If it's back burner, it captures it tagged as back burner, but it's not rated. And only if it's top use case does this pop out occur. And what the intention here to do is to create 2 heat maps. Each heat map has 2 axes. The first heat map is investment needed versus business impact. So how much effort you have to put in to get there? Obviously, low is good, high is not so good. And what's the impact? High is good, low is not so good. And that those 5-point scores generate a heat map for that use case. The second heat map is your internal readiness versus external urgency, again, ranked on 1 to 5. The reason we're doing this is now for your top use cases, we can capture, rank, and heat map it, and then we can do it across all of your answers and produce with you effectively part of the roadmap to proceed. That's how we frame that. It's important you show them that and use one example so that when they see it, they can do it correctly. Over to you, Kevin.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks, Stuart. So yeah, so what you will see is that we start with customer use cases, and it's exactly the same for everyone. So they would come in here and they'd say, no, we don't need AI for our CRM, that we're not interested in that. But we're very interested in a loyalty program. So yeah, this is a top use case, and we think that the investment is very high, or we think the investment is low, as Stuart has shared, and go through there are around about there are 79 use cases. This is why we have set aside the 120 minutes that you will see here. Once the team completes that, we then have 2 days of delay. The first one is for our team on our side. So you'll see that the RM and the consultants are not required. Yet for the second day, it is a yes for the RM, the consultants, as well as the OM. So this will be an internal meeting to go over the output of the use case prioritization and what was shared on the assessment call, so that we can get ready for the final outcomes call. Stuart, anything to add from your end?
Apologies. I think that's pretty good. Again, the way that I think of it is they've got 3 large chunks, 3 weeks of work to do. And again, every time I kind of start a meeting, it's like, here's what we've done, great job. Here's where we got to, here's what we learned, here's what's next, right? And it's kind of a story arc. And again, you're kind of the author, if you will, of the narrative of the story. And our role in a really good RM is to set really good expectations, meet the expectations, at every possible point, give them some feedback or a win. It's called a high five in the Octalysis framework. It's kind of their excitement. Wow, that worked. I'm feeling progress. I'm learning. We're getting somewhere. That's part of your job. Set them up for the next week, but also be really clear that there's 3 chapters left and then the book closes, right? What we don't want to do for any of us is get stuck in some kind of long scope creep. Again, I keep mentioning that, but it's really important because people will want more. And what we want them to do is that more needs to be all these ongoing engagements we're trying to win, right? Not bundled into the product. It's really, really important from that. The other thing I just want to say is the timing in here. Again, I'm going back to it, but we do need to keep to the timing. So for example, if I were suggesting, hey, you're looking to ahead, so you've got all the use cases, we then need a full 2 days to do the work on them. So make sure that whatever date you submit, we can't get back to you unless you give us 2 full days. 1 day is for Kevin to do the work, and the other day is for Kevin to meet with you and or consultant and make sure you're 100% ready to deliver the final outcomes call. The final outcomes call is 1 hour, okay? It's not 2 hours, it's not 5 hours, it is 1 hour. So we need to make sure we can do that in 1 hour. And I just think it's really important that we have the timing locked in tight, okay? Now, if we learn after you all doing this that you need a bit more time, and that is what everyone says, then we can discuss that. It's not a problem. You know, we don't want to be vigilant or militant, but we also want to be clear that we don't turn this into a consultancy product, because that will actually reduce its value for the community afterwards. Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that final outcome call then obviously takes place. The aim is that the client has you know an understanding of what they need to do moving forward. We've obviously given them the different use cases. We've diagnosed for them you know how ready they are from an AI perspective, and potential outcomes to follow on with. As Stuart has said, the idea is that any work on implementing those, any consultancy on getting those ready, helping them, that all needs to happen post AI ready. And so as we move now into sales, I mean, that is going to be a discussion topic around that, is the fact that this is a diagnostic assessment. It is extremely valuable. The amount of value that you're getting out of here is really you know immense, but it isn't you know going to be the implementation of you know what you have learned within those 15 days. And the red portion you know around internal debrief is very much about determining you know number one how it went, what went well, what went poorly, but really what are the opportunities you know that are going to come out of this AI ready. So that's really important. Stuart, anything further?
No, I think that's a really good view. So if we just kind of go back to 90%, if you don't mind for a second, Kevin, just scroll to the whole overview. Perfect. I just want to create a quick summary, and then we will stop this training and go into any Q&A. So again, what you will see here is a very thoughtfully designed, and this has had many iterations, but a plan that has clear steps and requirements. And you will notice across the bottom there where it says, you know, what has to be done and kind of what the next steps are and the triggers. The important thing is you will understand that Kevin, as your OM, will be setting these triggers. So for example, when you have completed the onboarding call and now the intake, EXQ, and survey and quiz is supposed to be occurring, Kevin needs to know those occurring. When completed, like there's a sequence here, and there's a sequence of emails and steps. And so you will need to be very closely aligned with Kevin. Now, if you get to the point that you're doing 3, 5, 10, 50 of these, we will absolutely put more automation in. Absolutely, to make it even easier, okay? But for now, it's really going to be responsible for your first one that, like, you might have Kevin on a WhatsApp chat. You know, it might just be like, you know, for example, it'd be, you know, Mr. Williams, you and Kevin, and you'll be like, okay, I'm taking Delta Paint through. I just had a great launch call and excited. They're on the intake. Kevin's like, perfect, right? And then Kevin can go, hey, did you check the drive? I see that the EXO has already been done, copying the drive, but they haven't done the AI quiz yet, right? Like you need to have that conversational way because you're a team getting this through. And remember, watch one, do one, teach one. On the beginning, Kevin's going to be helping and modeling how it does well and knowing that flow, and you're going to get the hang of it. By the second time, you're going to be doing it. But by the third time, you should be in the position that you don't need Kevin on the calls, which say WDT, because they're not requiring actually an OM in the call because you're now managing it. But if Kevin doesn't know that there's a delay or doesn't know, that's on you for not having shared it, okay? And we do want to get you to a position that you could be doing these in 10s and 20s and 50s. And as we get there, we'll do more automation, okay, to try and help with that. But for now, we just want to make sure you're in touch, okay? And the best might be a WhatsApp chat just between you two, and Kevin can log it and follow the flow, okay? I'm going to pause there, and I'm just going to say, Kevin, that was a brilliant run through. Thank you. I actually, watching that, feel really good about this latest iteration. We've done a lot of work to get to where we are today. And I'm going to stop that for the purpose of this training. But what I would like to do now is just quickly open it up for those people on the call for 5 minutes, if needed, of Q&A on what you saw and anything you didn't understand. How about I do it this way? I'm going to do around the horn. I'm going to start with Mr. Williams. Are there any questions you had, any things you want clarification on?
Yeah, a couple of questions. One is, what's the current limit in terms of how many of these you guys can run concurrently?
I would say right now would like to not be running concurrently more than 10 concurrently. Okay. Yeah. If we do, Kevin's going to need we're going to have to hire, right? Because it's going to be too much concurrently. We're currently doing singles ourselves. So that means probably for the co-brand group, listen, if you go out and sell 5 of these and they all launch at the same time, hallelujah, we'll stuff up and train and we'll figure it out. So don't feel bad, but I wouldn't recommend you do 5 in your first week. What I'm saying is I would do a couple of 1 and 2s before you really get up to speed, just to make sure that you feel super, super comfortable with it and you're clearing any questions. And so we're currently running at about, and remember 10 concurrently means, in different stages, right, across that period of time, right, because it's a 3-week run, okay? Yeah. But we are absolutely prepared to staff up and support if it grows. I mean, this is what we want to do is there's no upper limit. We just need to know. What I would prefer that you did is if you had quite a few coming, you just make sure that you're dealing with Kevin, as you should, as an RM, when you're booking the dates. Because Kevin might say, listen, we have some team on vacation. We've got the executive program that week. We've got a lot of assets. Could you start it the week after, for example? And Kevin would know then because he's got a view of everyone's, if that makes sense. Okay.
And have you guys created or defined the suggested agendas for all of the client meetings?
Yeah. So
go ahead, Kev.
So yeah, we've created the documents for each of the meetings. Those currently have a sort of a high level, and as we as we go through more and more, we'll definitely improve and add and the learnings that everyone gets from each other. But yes, each of those are documented.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Now, a good point there. It wouldn't be too difficult if we just put 1 to 10 in this and make sure the sequencing is right, just so they can follow them more progressively. We've got the docs, we've got the flow, but I think the question is just from an agenda. And again, we've got to be careful. I know we would all love to share stuff in advance, and clients would all want stuff like what's coming up. But what we don't want to do is share that and it's got a link and then they go and try and do the thing before, right? So like the agenda is really for you to be able to run them through at a pace that we can manage them. And what you need to be able to do is listen, trust in the process. We've got this. We know how to get you the maximum ROI. And what we have done is learned how to do this extraordinarily well. And okay, cool. No questions. I got it. I'm going to trust the process. Because you're going to get excited people that want to jump ahead. And what you don't want them to do is jump the gun. Okay, cool. Any other questions, Sire? Can I move on to the captain?
Move on. Thanks.
All right, Captain, any questions?
Yeah, experience with the EXQ quotient. I've done it supporting the client in doing it, and that helped them really understanding. There was like a and if I understand correctly here, that is not an option or not thought of as that they do it by themselves.
That's correct. It's intended to be done by themselves. Now, if they come out of it, and this is a perfect example of an upsell, they might come out and go, listen, that EXQ survey was like love it, but I wanted to spend more time on it. I don't think I've got my MTP right. I want to look at stuff. You're like, that is exactly the right question to ask. And one of the things that we can do is set you up immediately when you're done to work with one of our coaches to take you through and go wherever you want to on your EXQ. That's why we're doing it. That's a perfect ask. And again, that's why we're not consulting them through the process.
Okay. Yeah, so that is an example of an upsell. Yeah.
Yeah. Next question, if any.
No, and that I think this is a very good point. And I think I got it.
Great, thank you.
We do not want to over-deliver. Yep.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Correct. We're not charging 50 or 100K for a team. This is a 10K sprint. And you need to say, listen, we've kept it at a point that you get, you're probably getting, I always say, by the way, no, I'll say it in sales, but I'll just mention here, we've talked to some companies, shown them this before, one of which was Upwork. Many of you know they've been a client of OpenEXO before. We showed them AI Ready at an event, didn't tell them the price, said what you pay, and his answer was, I'd pay 35 to 50K all day long for this. They're getting it for 10. Okay, so they're getting extraordinary value already for 10. Anything they want to do beyond that's consultative, contractual, coaching, all needs to be some other contracted deal afterwards. We don't want to slip it in here. Okay. Jason Perry, to you, any questions?
We can't hear you, Jason.
My middle name should be you're muted. I said right at the moment, I'm actually trying to get caught up putting some of this over into the SDS tool to try to get everything in line. So sounding good so far.
You're good. Okay, great. I see, who else I've missed? Maria, I think might have had to jump off. Go ahead. Who's me?
No, I was going to say Steve or Dr. Scott are the last two.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. I'm sorry that I was not able to attend earlier. Actually, I'm out of town right now. So I'm going to have to catch up with the recording. I guess that should be available almost immediately.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, not immediately. It's probably going to take a day or so, because what we
Okay.
want to do is we're going to edit it and make sure it's a clean, ready for distribution recording. That's why we only have one AI attending today, so that we can control a really good, clean copy of the training. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No. So I'm glad that we have finally reached this point, and I'm excited.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you for that. Steve, over to you. Steve, you're muted if we can't hear you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Kudos, guys. I like the way it was designed. I have no specific question. I think it will. There will be opportunities to tune up some things with practice. The only thing I can think of is at the end, after reviewing the prioritizing the use cases, it would be good to run an exit survey to kind of understand what kind of time and budget is available to help the client with the specific use cases.
Kevin, is there a place that we should be putting that in? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it could be something to run or speak, or at least speak about it, potentially have as something to do, in that final outcome. So I think that's something to definitely look at. I mean, that needs to be part of the discussion in terms of next steps, for sure.
Yeah. By the way, Jason, I see Jake Perry attached. Is that your AI?
You're muted, Jason. I think that is.
Jason, is that, yeah.
Yeah.
That your AI?
Yeah, that's Fathom that followed me over. So either
All
way,
right. Sorry, I'm gonna remove that.
That's
and
fine.
If you don't mind, and do you mind if I ask you just delete it for me, just so
I
that
will.
we can contain one clean copy? Thank you. It
Okay,
didn't seem to drop on my. If you could kick it out on your end or drop it on your end as well, thanks. Steve, I love that question. I tell you what we'd like to do is, where possible, Kevin and I will continue to maintain a log of these kinds of suggestions for potential improvements and things. And this committee that helped do this, I think we agreed, would meet maybe every 30 days or something and review potential improvement ideas. But what I want to ask all of you to do is, please don't paint outside of the lines of the current delivery until we approve those changes as a group. That's what we've agreed, right? And so even if you go, oh, I'd love to know their budget, if that's not currently something we're collecting at the end, I would recommend we don't kind of paint that in unless we discuss it as a group. Because what I wouldn't want to do is someone to get a different experience from someone else if they have a chat and feel that they got underserved by anyone, okay? So I love the ideas, but any ideas that aren't currently in scope, I think we should put into a meeting, and maybe in 30 days, after we've done 4 or 5, we have a chat and we're like, here's some ideas, what do people think, and we approve any other changes. I'd like to make that an agreement with everyone. Is that okay? Okay, great.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Any other questions, Steve, while you have the microphone?
No other questions. Thank you, Stuart.
Great, wonderful. All right, everyone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a pin in that one. Okay. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to do a quick intro and start again as an introduction to the next part of our training, which is the sales-based training. Okay.